Phil Brungraber here, and I wanted to do a little series during this time to not only for my students but just in general, giving me something to do, and also to include on my Instagram page and YouTube channel. And I wanted to start with Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. The subtitle there is An Antidote to Chaos, because this is a pretty chaotic time. And it feels like this is the type of thing that would be very helpful to help people get through uncertain times, chaotic times like this. We've gone a long stretch with everything being pretty predictable, honestly. I was discussing the other day how we got to really kind of complaining about, in hindsight, somewhat petty things. We were upset about and arguing about things that seem a little bit trivial at the moment. And in a time when we live in the wealthiest country on the planet, and if in the United States, and there's plenty of other places that are very well off, there's a number of issues that people are dealing with on a daily basis that threaten their very existence. And now with COVID 19, the entire world gets to experience this together. And it sort of reminded me that our lives are fragile and this existence we have is very fragile, and that there's a lot of chaos in the world, and that as humans we're forever trying to balance order and chaos, yin and yang. And so I thought this book I read a couple years ago already when it came out. Everybody was kind of reading it at the time. Jordan Peterson sort of blew up as a phenomenon because he was getting into some discussions regarding laws in Canada that I'm not going to go into at the moment. But there was a ton. I began watching him quite a bit. Obviously, he landed on Joe Rogan's podcast, which I watch pretty regularly, and I enjoyed the discussions they were having there. Very intelligent man, psychology professor in Toronto originally, and now a bit of a global phenomenon. So his 12 rules for life are, I found them to be very useful at a time I was really trying to create some order out of the chaos that was my life, and to for my students' benefit as we're all on this remote learning system, and then for anyone else who might benefit. I'll do a little recording on each of them, my own thoughts, kind of summarize it or whatever. I apologize, I don't know copyright rules necessarily. Obviously, I'm using this book. I'll gladly promote it, provide a link to it if you want to buy it, because it's brilliant. I'm not sure if this violates any rules or not, but it's going to be really helpful for anyone really who wants to sort of make some order out of their life. The very first rule Dr. Peterson puts in there is called "Stand up straight with your shoulders back." Now, this is part of the reason I love this book. The rules he puts in there are very simple and straightforward. They're easy to understand, and yet very helpful in your own life, right? So he gets into a longer discussion because he is a professor and has a PhD in psychology. He gets into the biology and evolution of lobsters and of other species. It turns out that lobsters have a similar reward system in their brain. Our brains have the same reward system, right? We gain pleasure and we feel good through various things. It could be eating, it could be doing some sort of activity that you enjoy. Runners, I was in the army, right? So runners, we'll talk about that runner's high, which is a real thing. At some point, your legs are burning, your lungs are burning, and then all of a sudden you start to feel pretty good about it. And you think, man, I can really keep running. Well, our body has released chemicals that help us feel good about that, right? And it turns out that lobsters have a similar reward system. And he goes into how lobsters kind of compete with one another, especially male lobsters, right? For either mates or for even just the more preferable living situation, the better location to set up shop or whatever. And so they'll fight with each other. And I won't get into the entire thing. It's actually very fascinating to me. But the premise is this: for when a lobster wins, or when we're having a successful run of life, we feel better about ourselves. We may even stand up straighter with our head up higher. This actually produces more of the chemicals in us that are going to give us confidence and make us feel good. So that when faced with new challenges, we approach them with far more confidence and we're far more likely to be successful again. The converse is also true. If we feel as though, oh man, you know what, I didn't do very well, and I'm not doing very well, and we sort of slouch and hold our head down, our body begins to get used to that response, so that when faced with a new challenge, we might slide into our fight or flight reaction much sooner. We might just cower and admit defeat right away rather than battle for something we really want. And we become even chemically kind of predisposed now to failure through that. Or, as I was mentioning earlier, or predisposed to victory because we feel as though, okay, we got this. We've been successful in the past and we can do this no problem. It's partially, I think, part of the reason why you'll see sort of winning streaks in sports. You've seen teams that shouldn't probably, on paper, be as successful as they are, but they gain a ton of confidence after a couple wins and they go on win after win after win. Or conversely, you've seen teams that were built very strong and had a ton of success during the season and suddenly in the playoffs completely collapse and they can't seem to do anything right. I've watched baseball games. Baseball is one of my favorite sports, that and soccer. I watched a baseball game, I believe it was Cleveland Indians in the postseason, where all of a sudden during this game, I think they were playing the Rangers, the pitcher, catcher, no one could throw to first base. In one inning, I believe there were something like 3 errors in the same inning, where all of a sudden they just couldn't throw the ball to first base, something that happens thousands of times during a season. Suddenly they couldn't do it. There was just a fear, a hesitation, something in them that was like, no, I'm going to fail at this. And sure enough, that fear that they were going to fail at it made it happen. And this comes back to kind of something we all know, right? Sometimes we talk about fake it till you make it, right? But what that's really getting at, I have some issues with that statement, but what that really gets at is own it and have confidence that you can be successful. As Dr. Peterson talks about, stand up straight with your shoulders back, right? Not only physiologically, this is very good for us too. It opens up our lungs, right? We're getting more oxygen to our bodies. Oxygen, as we know, is crucial to our survival, but in many more ways than we're even aware of. So there's a whole neurochemistry involved there and a whole physiological response involved there towards this simple instruction, this simple rule in Dr. Peterson's book of stand up straight with your shoulders back. A lot of other things go into that as well. Proper diet, proper rest, keeping your body healthy has an absolute psychological effect on your body. In my class, I talk to you all students about this, right? That we're really a mind, body, and a spirit. We have an intellect, an ability to think and reason. We have a physical body, and we also have an emotional aspect to us as well, an emotional side to us. If you want to call that a religious side, the Holy Spirit, whatever it is you want, that's fine. But there's definitely an emotional aspect to us that's separate from our rational mind. We can know something is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but emotionally we can't force ourselves to do it or get ourselves to do the right thing. So those three in conjunction all work together, and one of them going wrong will absolutely affect the other two. If you're physically ill, it affects your emotional state and your ability to think. Many of us don't think very well if we're hungry. If some of our basic needs aren't being met, we have a really hard time focusing our thoughts. And we also have a hard time dealing emotionally, right? That's why this term hangry shows up, right? When you're hungry, you're also angry at the same time, you're irritable. Well, it's because your physical needs aren't being met in that time. So what this really gets down to is this, right? Rule number 1, stand up straight with your shoulders back. It's really this sort of idea that we should walk tall, stand tall, have confidence that you are a being that is worthy of love, you're a being that's capable of success, and that if you discipline yourself, you can absolutely achieve the things that you want in life. And in this time of chaos with COVID-19, it can help us to survive this rather than crumple into anxiety, which is only going to create higher risk for us and suppress our immune system through stress hormone. Stand up tall with your shoulders back. Be confident that we will get through this together. Be confident that we'll come out on top and even better at the end. And this will help you have success in not just this time, but in all times. So again, just to repeat, rule number 1 of Dr. Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, stand up straight with your shoulders back. This is Philip Brunengraber. Thank you.